Welcome to Technology and Education Today. I'm Richard Smith.
And I'm Caroline Crawford, and we are coming to you from the University of Houston Clear Lake in Houston, Texas, USA, and we are a part of the Instructional Design and Technology Program.
And today we're discussing how does one find out or figure out the price of designing an online course. It should seem to be a simple affair, don't you think?
One would imagine right up until you start considering the number of people involved and what their talents are and pulling everyone together into a workable environment. Which begs the question, what type of environment are we speaking about?
And where do all these people come from? So let's figure out the first thing.
Well, we know it's an instructional environment, so that helps the situation.
Right. So let's figure out the first thing we need to talk about, and that is whether the content is there.
As in whether or not it has already been designed out? Whether or not it's already available?
You know, I've thought of something even before that.
Here we go.
Even before that. And that is, how sophisticated a course do you want to have designed?
Now there's a question. By sophisticated, what do you mean?
Well, you can have a course that is what we might say is linear, which means basically we would present the content in text or video format. And
in a progressive manner.
In a progressive manner, absolutely. One thing following another. And we would test very simply using multiple choice questions, possibly essay questions, depends how much burden one wants to put on the instructor. And basically, it's a very simple approach to designing a course. I guess it's kind of analogous to a classroom lecture.
There's the potential for that, I would say. Okay.
And then
presenting the information in a linear format. Okay.
I guess the next stage would be if you want some level of interactivity.
And by interactivity, what do you mean? Do you mean interactive activities such as bulletin boards, or do you mean interactive activities such as team enhancements,
right,
working in team groups?
Yes.
Okay.
And some branching from one activity to another. But basically, it's like a linear course with some sophisticated enhancements in there.
Meaning more time and effort on the part of the learner, or more time and effort on the part of the instructor to facilitate the instruction?
It could possibly be both, but for sure, more time and effort to develop that course.
Well, I would agree with that statement.
So
yes.
That's another cost factor we would come in contact with. And the third would be one of these highly sophisticated courses.
As in more simulations, and the learner chooses what they're going to focus upon and which way their learning is going to travel. Kind of like a really enhanced WebQuest or ThinkQuest type environment.
Absolutely. And or
I got it right.
and or you could also have branching as part of that distance education course. So depending on how a student answers a question or responds to a situation or a simulation in the online course, the course would take a separate direction. So not all students in the course would follow the same linear route.
So you're saying it's a course delineated progression instead of a learner delineated progression the student can choose. You know, like, okay, this is low technology, but I like it. Those books where you could read to a certain point, and what do you think will happen next, and you choose page number 5 or page number 10, and it's your choice which realm you want to travel into to see what will happen next.
That's a possible
something like that, but within a simulated environment where the learner could choose.
You could do that. That's one way of doing it, and another way is if a student is not doing well in a particular part of the course that's being taught, the course could branch to some form of tutorial for that student.
Okay, so test, reteach, test again type situation until they meet a certain level, and then they can progress forward?
Yes, but in either situation, to accomplish that in a distance education course requires a significant amount of effort, and that effort has to be paid for somehow. So
time, money, and quality, the triangulation.
Yes, and so now we can get into the next big cost factor, which was what I
Now
started.
we're going to loop back?
We're going to loop back because I get so concerned with the content, but
I'm just letting you guide. Guide the discussion, Richard. Come on.
but really, when you think about it, once you decide what type of style of course you want, the next big thing is the content that's going to go in that course. So
Who knew that was important?
until
I
you
know, that was tongue in cheek. I know.
until you start designing your own courses.
That's true. That's a lot of time and effort.
So either one, you might have a client may request an online course to be developed where a significant amount of the content is already there.
You just have to design it into a workable environment.
Right, so they may have the questions that they want the students to be asked.
The projects, whether there's a team environment or not, if there's a simulation that may already be developed.
Well, but just in terms of content, they know exactly what they want their students taught. There is significant amount of that content lying around from manuals that have already previously been developed.
Which suggests that there have been several other instructional designers working on this previously.
Well, no, it just may have been that they had somebody from their company who was just a manager, and they said, could you design some training? And the manager says, well, I guess so, and writes it up, and then you have a bunch of lectures for the training. But whatever it is, the content is already there. And
it still has to be framed by the instructional designer and subject matter expert. Double check to make sure.
But the content does not have to be dug up. And then you would have the next level, which would be where some of the content exists, but certainly not all of the content. And this content, once again, might be found in various
like handouts from face-to-face training type things, but it hasn't been framed appropriately for the learner.
Exactly right. And so that...
Okay, that's 2 that I got right. I'm getting nervous. What happens at number 3?
Number 3
That's okay, we've never gotten there.
Number 3 is, oh boy, we got problems. Previous training has not been developed, and the only people with the knowledge of what needs to go into the course are what we call the subject matter experts.
Absolutely.
And then you need an instructional designer to meet with that subject matter expert or experts, pull the content out.
Develop the working relationship so that you can frame the information appropriately with the subject matter expert input, approval, going throughout the instructional design process. Yeah. It is interesting going everywhere from we have all the information necessary, all the content, but we need to frame it appropriately, which has its own sets of concerns sometimes, but at least the content is there to begin the discussion. Then we have partially the content is available and ready to integrate, but it's not fully articulated yet. And then we have a situation where nothing has been developed yet. We're starting from scratch. We have the subject matter experts, which is a huge component right there, and we just need to glean the information out of them in order to frame it appropriately for the learning environment. That you mentioned before would either be basic textual lecture, pseudo-lecture style, interactive components versus the straight-on simulation type environment.
Right, so now we get an interaction factor of these two categories, and which can...
well done to you.
I like these big words. And so you can begin to start establishing costs for the development of the course.
Figuring out what your baseline is.
That's right. You've got your baseline. You have an idea what the client wants, and a client can be anywhere from a company that needs instruction designed or workshops designed, to where we work in a university, where a university senior staff, and this is extremely common these days, have decided they want courses developed, and we have to make a determination as to...
Tout sweet.
Tout sweet. C'est vrai.
I don't speak any other language. I barely speak English well.
So at that point, and you know why that information is handy, because frequently people, high-level administrators who want training and other things developed, don't really have a grasp of what's involved to develop that training. So they can set a timeline, say, I want it in 2 weeks. So you as a person responsible for that project have got to be able to sit down and explain to that senior level administrator exactly what goes on in developing a course. So now we get to the
well, not only that, but figuring out what do you mean by you want training, especially online training.
Well,
what do you mean by that?
and
Do you want a little video of a talking head? Do you want slideshows? Do you want a real course environment? Do you want a simulated environment? What are you thinking
and that
as
goes
the
back,
outcome?
and that goes back to those first three categories that we discussed.
We talked about too.
And
I'm guessing another important component is the number of people involved in creating the online courses or the training environments,
sure,
where they might be.
Because once you have content and you have the style of instruction, so to speak, now you have a good grasp on how many people you might possibly need to develop an online course. And the more sophisticated the course, the more people, professionals, you're going to need to develop that course.
One would imagine so. And consideration towards the time involved in that as well. Again, I know I keep going back to it, but the triangulation, quality, time, and effort.
Right, because that time is what you're going to have to pay. You're going to pay for people's time and expertise.
You always want quality time money. Quality time money.
It costs.
What is most important to you?
Well,
if the quality is most important, it's going to take a lot of time, cost a lot of money.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
You like that? I make my little triangle and I just start pointing.
It was almost a hologram.
Oh, thank you.
So, if you are at the very sophisticated level of developing a course which is highly interactive, branches one way or another, goes to advanced work or remedial work for the people taking the course, that's going to require either one, a team of people, or two, an awful lot of time on the part of one expert, and probably a subject matter expert.
As well as how much money is being thrown at the endeavor.
Exactly correct. And that you're going to have to pay for it. So you're going to have to pay for a subject matter expert for that person's time. You're going to need to pay for an instructional designer. You may have to pay for multimedia experts on the, if you're dealing with a highly sophisticated course.
Graphic designers, programmers.
Right, all of that.
But you also need someone within the whatever learning environment you're speaking of. You have to have someone who is knowledgeable enough within that environment to say what might work, what might not work, what kind of workarounds might be necessary.
Exactly. So it's the more complicated the e-learning course that you want to have, then the more money you're going to have to spend to get a good, well-designed course. And the better educated people are about those factors, the happier they're going to be with the results that they receive.
Absolutely. And even though we happen to be academic faculty at a university, it doesn't mean that we understand, we meaning the holistic, the larger realm, we faculty, don't understand the first thing about instructional design or training, developing the training expectations. Most people don't know the first thing. No one has ever gone through educational process and talked about a lesson plan, much less a progressive understanding of the information, conceptual frameworking, and all that stuff.
Yeah, and
most people don't know that.
And
we're lucky we happen
yes.
to, but most people
and
don't.
This is key in any organization, particularly at a university which wants to start online courses. You need to understand that a team needs to be involved. One single faculty member is not going to develop a very highly sophisticated course
on their own time.
And yes, and a team can only develop a limited number of courses at a time. So I think we've hit most of the points.
Those are very good points that you brought up, Richard.
Thank you, and I liked your points also.
My quality, time,
money. I like that triangle.
Well, it's a realistic expectation. Depending on the quality, you have time and money concerns that have to be addressed, and same for time. If time is of an essence, what kind of quality are you looking at and how much money you willing to throw at it? See, my little triangle.
Outstanding. I'm Richard Smith.
I am Caroline Crawford. Again, we are coming to you from the University of Houston, Clear Lake in Houston, Texas, USA. Bye!